Welcome into another edition of Brennan Tassif is your ex-drinking buddy. I am your host, Brennan Tassif. As always, the format of the show, I actually have a wonderful guest today. So with the show, we're going to either, it's me just ranting and raving about stuff, or I will have a guest in and we will talk about just life, what's going on, comedy, drinking stories, all sorts of fun stuff. My guest today is going to be the infamous Daisy Tackett. What's going on, Daisy?
Not too much. I'm excited to be here, even though it does go against my stated stance of no more men having podcasts. I am happy to be here because I do think you are the exception. But yeah, I'm excited. Long day of doing nothing at work. So
good. Well,
yeah.
I'm glad you made it. Daisy is a local comedian here in Jacksonville, but you've done comedy all over.
Yeah. I started doing it in New York, and
yep. And we're going to get into all of that. But first, plug anything you want to plug, any upcoming shows, dates, social media, whatever you got.
This Sunday, I'm going to be doing a spot at Veterans United Brewery. Sunday. Yeah, that's the 17th? No.
I thought the show was always on Saturday.
That's on Sunday.
Okay.
I was told Sunday, so I could be wrong. And then I've got, on social media, you can follow me at Fat Steve Buscemi. Fat Steve Buscemi everywhere. That's Instagram, that is Twitter, and that's also my TikTok now.
Oh, you're on TikTok.
I am on TikTok.
You're on the talk.
Yeah.
I've been avoiding the talk.
Oh, it's really fun. I made one offhandedly.
You did? I do remember when you went on TikTok because you posted it on your Facebook and it was hilarious.
There was like an NYU student who made this insufferable TikTok where he was like, look at all these great things I did. And I did this fancy degree program and I lived in the best dorm and my parents have a lot of money. So I got to do all this cool stuff. And then it made me really angry. So I made one with the exact same script as his, but then I just used my photos from my NYU experience. And it's like dead trees, trash on the ground, my dorm with no AC, and also extensive rodent problem, stuff like that. And all the teens on TikTok were like, do you mean that I shouldn't go to NYU?
Oh, really?
And I was like, this is not a college advice TikTok. This is a I'm dunking on Ben Neely TikTok.
Shouts out, shots fired. Ben Neely, come get some. We're in Jacksonville, 904.
And he commented, and he was like, haha, so funny. And I was like, we have mutual friends, and I know that you're annoying. So
yeah. So I've heard that with the way TikTok works is that it almost like your first couple of talks, it kind of like blows them up to like everyone, almost to make it like, oh my God, look at all these views I've gotten. So you keep doing it. Is that the case? I haven't been on it. So is that the case?
I mean, I think for me, that was definitely the case because that was like probably the fourth one I'd ever made. But it also, what I've noticed is the more work you put into it, the more views you get. Mm-hmm. So if you have a TikTok that has like, you use one of their elements, like their green screen function or their filters that might put it in front of more people. If you like add a lot of captions and text and you use the hashtags and everything.
If you're using the app, the algorithm pushes it.
If I just make a video and I'm like, hey, what's up? It's Daisy Tackett. I'm super hot and have perfect politics. Then it won't necessarily broadcast that. Yeah. For some people it will, but you got to like put the work in.
Yeah, because that's what Ben did. Ben blew up on TikTok.
Yeah.
Like blew up. I was telling, me and Marcus were talking about it. We did a show. Marcus was on the show at Ace Arena. Mm-hmm. And it was so funny because whenever he mentioned like, who knows me here from TikTok? Everyone was like, yeah.
That's
or like,
insane.
No, he said, who here knows me from the table? And everyone went nuts. But apparently he does it on TikTok and Instagram and everything.
Interesting.
But I was just like, oh, this guy's like internet famous now.
Well, he always had a huge following on Facebook and Twitter before that, I think. But yeah.
I never wanted to get into TikTok until I saw that. And then I was like,
it's such a powerful, awesome tool. And I've been like messing around with it, doing different stuff now. But
the therapist one you did was hilarious. How I feel before I go into therapy and then how I feel after therapy. That one.
I really wanted that one to be better. And then I did a whole one where kind of about how this woman on Nextdoor had been like making hostile remarks about somebody, like some communist teen blasting music out of her car.
Yeah.
And so it's like kind of it unfolds, and it's me trying to decode the mystery, and then it's me I realize it's me.
It's you doing it.
I have the Bernie sticker on the car. I'm like blasting the Smiths at full volume. I'm like, okay, yeah, it's me.
Yeah. So Daisy, like I said, is a comic here in Jacksonville. You were voted best in 904. Am I right on that?
Yeah, number 1 in the 904 from Void magazine. I got some stickers.
When you posted it, I'm not gonna lie to you, I thought you were like making fun of it.
No,
because with the pandemic and I know you and your humor, I was like, oh, look at Daisy.
Right.
I was like, I wonder who won it. I wonder who she's ripping on. And then I was like, oh, she won. She won.
Yeah, I won one. Yeah.
Because I know sometimes you like to go after that kind of like stuff.
Yes, I do. Yeah. No. And now I am fully defending the system.
Yeah. Okay. Because it works.
It
works. You won it.
I won.
So when I came back into comedy in 2018, like everyone on that listens to this podcast knows, I met you, I think, outside of Rain Dogs one night.
Yeah, probably.
And as is, you and I have talked about this, obviously, but as is the case, I thought, oh, this woman hates me. Just because I know I've said this to a lot of people, but I was like, when I first came back, I was like, I really don't think Daisy likes me. Because there were certain shows where you'd go up before me. And at the time when I first came back, a lot of stuff I would talk about was like college football and everything. And then you would talk about how you were a college athlete and then, you know, how certain things happened and how you like dislike the football players and stuff. And I was like, I am so self-centered that I was like, she's doing this on purpose to burn everything I have to talk about.
I have only used sets vindictively in that way, like maybe 2 times, and
really?
Never towards you.
No, it was weird, but
I do use them vindictively. I want that on the record.
I mean, I do the same thing when, like, if someone's following me and I know like that they're gonna do a bunch of hacky shit, I make fun of being a hacky comedian, and then it's like, yeah, go, I'll have fun.
Yeah,
but I'm just so self-centered, and that comes with being a recovering alcoholic. But I was just like, she's doing this on purpose, and then. The more I got to know you, the more I realized how much we have in common. We both studied political science at school. You went to, as you mentioned, NYU. I went to Florida Atlantic. But we actually ended up having a lot more in common. Both were college athletes, Division I college athletes, shouts out.
Yeah.
But then I just realized, oh, maybe I should just have some more fucking material. Maybe I shouldn't talk about the same thing. And then, you know, we got to talking outside of Rain Dogs that one night. And then I was like, okay. Oh, we're cool.
Yeah.
Because in my head, and I, you know, this happens I'm sure with everybody, but I had never really talked to you. Mm. So I just had it in my head like, oh, she's like, it's me against her.
Oh, okay.
Like,
yeah.
She's trying to torpedo my sets. So she's going to talk about these specific things. So when I get up there, everyone's going to be angry with me. And then come to find out I'm just a psycho.
Yeah. I think a lot of people, you're not the only person that's told me this, that they're like, I'm pretty sure you hated me. And I mean, I hate a lot of people, but like not that many people to where it's, you know, very few people I would say in comedy at large am I like irritated with at any point. Although I am sometimes, but
well, and that's understandable.
But yeah, I mean, I think people find me intimidating
at
very first much so. Glance. Or like 7th through 8th glances. And then when you talk to me, I think it's a little bit more like, oh, she doesn't want to kill me or anything.
Yeah, and that was the thing with us was I think we were just smoking or something. And I was like, all right, I'm going to get to the bottom of this. And then you were like, what are you talking about? I was like, I know you hate me. And you're like, what? This was years ago outside of Rain Dogs. But little things like that stick in my head because then I found myself, because we ended up having so much in common and stuff, and I was like, then I found myself being like, no, Daisy's my girl. Like, if anybody would ever like talk shit or if anything ever came up, I'm like, Tackett. We get Tackett.
Well, yeah. I mean, after I got in that incident with my ex-boyfriend at the bar.
Oh, God. You got to tell that story.
Yeah. So I was dating this dude, cheating on me the whole time, lied about everything. Like, my favorite lie of his is that he told me that he invented the cocktail, the painkiller.
Yeah, this is totally his idea.
Which was invented in like 78.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds like a 70s cocktail.
Told me he invented that. I mean, it'd be little shit like he'd be like, "Oh yeah, I'm getting Waffle House for lunch," and then I'd go over and it'd be like Taco Bell bags. I'd be like, "Why didn't you just say you got like Taco Bell?" But the worst thing that I found out after is that he started telling everybody that he did stand-up comedy, but specifically that he was doing the shows that I was on, and actually in one case photoshopped his like face and name over my own.
Oh my God.
And it's like, it would be kind of stuff like I won a competition in St. Augustine at Jackie Knight's, and he would then next day tell everyone, "Hey, I won this competition at Jackie Knight's," which is like, A, not something to really brag about
at all,
but B, it's like, you know, everyone was like, well, we can Google that and see that it's like not true. Like there's no mention of your name plus comedy anywhere.
Well, and that's the weird thing with comedy. So when I came back into comedy, the internet was in full force, because when I left, it was 2015. And then when I came back in 2018, like...
Are you saying that the internet was not in full force?
No, it was. Let me rephrase that. My presence on the internet, that's a better way to phrase it. Because I had gotten everything on social media as Brennan T Comedy, because I had done a few open mics in South Florida, so I'm a comedian now.
Right, of course. That's how it works.
Yeah. So back in like 2009 and 10, I had gotten all these accounts under Brennan T Comedy, but I never really used them. Like I only like Twitter. I still, it's so hard for me to remember to use Twitter. Like I always forget.
So what you got to do is you got to think every time I have a thought, tweet it, and then that's it. That's the whole secret. Don't even filter your thoughts.
Just go.
Shoot them out.
But so I never really used any of that social media or anything like that. And then when I came back in 2018, I was like, all right, I'm going to take it more seriously. I'm going to start posting about shows. I'm going to start tweeting stuff. I'm going to start like, but to your point, now if you Googled me 3 years ago, it's like mugshot, college football, mugshot, college football. But now it's all this just random comedy stuff.
Yeah.
So anyone could have Googled him and just seen like, oh, this guy's full of it.
Yeah. I mean, he doesn't even have like a LinkedIn profile. So like there's literally like nothing about him that even comes up. So
do you want to talk about how you handled this situation?
Yes. So I had just had a show at...
Just real quick, I don't mean to interrupt, but this was the turning point, I think, in our friendship.
It really was.
Go ahead.
So this was... I had just done a show at Hyperion. I had tried to break up with him like 4 or 5 times over the course of our relationship, and he just like wouldn't let me. And then this time I broke up with him finally after I found out about the cheating, everything. Then I find out a few days later about the whole photoshopping, comedy, whatever. And I find out on my way to the show. And I start to get extremely angry on stage at the show.
Yeah. Which I do on a regular basis, so I understand that.
Yeah. I mean, I have, it's one of, that was a set where I was like really excited and looking forward to it. So I actually brought my tripod to film.
Yeah, I remember. I was at that show.
Yeah. But then my friend called me in the middle, so the tape is cut in half. But if you watch it, I mean, you can see, because that's the first time I started doing the material about him, was at that show. And you can just see me. Yeah. His name is Cooper, which is a dog name, as we all know. And my name is also a dog name, Daisy. Anyways. So you can just tell on the stage how.
So just increasingly
angry, viscerally angry I am. And he works down at the Jack's Beach Bars. Also, he moved back recently, and he is still a bar back there. And I have a lifetime ban for what I'm about to tell you all. So I head over to the bar he works at, and I get myself a mango White Claw. And I sit at a table, and he walks past me and just like completely acts like I'm not there, which just pisses me off even more.
Obviously.
So then I get up and I go sit at the actual bar, and he's like, "What do you want?" And
he's just bar backing, so he's just kind of running around, running around the bar.
And he's like, "What do you want?" And I was like, "Why are you telling people that you're like doing my comedy career?"
Yeah.
And he's like, I've never done that. And I was like, I mean, yes, you have. Like, I have screenshots of you doing that. And he starts like, he's like, whatever, you need to get out of here. So I turned to the two girls sitting next to me at the bar. And I go, hey, did you know that we dated for 6 months? But he cheated on me the entire time. And the girls are like, what? And then he goes, we never even dated.
Wow.
Which, after I caught him cheating, I actually recorded our his apology conversation that we had, because he was such a gaslighting idiot that I knew if I recorded it, I would like know for a fact what he said on that thing. So it's like everything he's saying, of course, absolutely contradicts.
And that's infuriating, because I know you and I, like I said earlier, are a little similar in this way. Like when you know what the truth is, and we see it in politics all the time, like you know what the facts are. Yeah. And people just blatantly lie. And I know when I was in school, it drove me fucking bananas. Insane.
And so for him to be like, we never even dated, and then it's like, okay, well, I have a literal conversation recording of you saying that, okay, yes, I acknowledge that we became exclusive on this date and we were dating, and then he's like, I love you, and I'm like, oh, so okay, so we didn't do any of that? Yeah. Right.
It's someone else's voice.
And I am I'm angry. I'm really worked up at this point. And he's like, you know, you need to get out of the bar. I'll pay for your drink if you hadn't already.
Well, that's sweet.
So I go, oh no, don't worry about it. I already paid for it with my comedy money. I'm sorry, your comedy money. And he gets super angry. And then his boss comes over and he's like, what's going on? Like, you should go. And I'm like, he's a fucking sociopath. He's a pathological liar. And this is my favorite part. His boss goes, okay, that might be true, but you still really need to leave. And I go, fine, I'm leaving. And we go over to the door. I go over to the door. He like sprints out behind the bar and like starts to open the door and then grabs my arm and starts to shove me, which, I mean, I hate being touched by people I don't know. I mean, very few people.
You don't like being touched by people you know a lot of the time.
Yeah. I mean, there's a very small hug list, an approved hug list. And yeah, some people, like, a birthday present from me is a hug. And that's a lot.
Even people like myself who are on that list are still like, but like we do it still. I'm like, I'm all right.
Yeah. So I really hate being touched, and he also knows this very well. He grabs my arm, starts to shove me, and just immediately my fight or flight response is I'm going to take a giant swing at his face.
Yeah, fight.
And when I graduated from NYU, I got this super obnoxious class ring. It's it's one of the men's signet rings, so it's huge. Yeah. Because all the women's ones looked like engagement rings, and it's like, I'm not marrying the institution of New York University. Yeah. I am graduating. So it's huge, and I hit him right with my ring, right in the orbital bone.
Hell yeah.
Which I wasn't even trying to do that.
It's just a natural instinct. Like, you got grabbed
And see, the whole thing is I wouldn't have gone into the bar unless I had gotten such an amazing parking spot. So you know how those streets at the beach bars are, where they're like, it's in between the bars on the way to Third.
Yeah. They're very narrow streets.
So everywhere. I had gotten a spot right in front of the bar he works at, like right in the pull-in, like something that's usually never there on a Friday night. I pulled in, I went in, then I realized I had just punched him, and I run out, I get in my car, and the first thing I do is I message Brennan, and I'm like, what do I do?
What's the protocol here?
Is this a bar fight? Like, what just happened? Yeah, I'm like asking for legal advice, because I feel like Brennan, out of everyone I know, would know.
I have been in many a bar fights, as a lot of the listeners already know. But yeah, you had messaged me and you said, what do I do? And I said, are you still there? And we went back and forth, and you're like, no, I left. I said, you cannot go back there. Yeah. because what ends up happening, especially in a bar fight, is if you leave and no one catches you within as long as no one's like seriously hurt, if no one like finds you within a few hours, they're just like, all right, in my experience, they're like, all right, forget about it.
Yeah.
So I was just telling you, I was like, wait and like leave. And then if you don't hear anything by tomorrow night, you're fine.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happened. And I don't think anyone, especially like if I got punched in the face by one of my exes for something I did, I'm not reporting.
Well, and I've also later found out this is not the only time this has happened to him.
At work, I would assume.
At work.
Yeah. The way the manager came over and was just kind of like.
Well, so because he is literally so horrible to everyone he dates.
Yeah.
That there have been like at least 3 other altercations inside the bar because he acts so poorly. But like that, my biggest concern was, of course, that he's like such a charming, disarming person.
Yeah, he's a sociopath.
Yeah, because he's a fucking sociopath that, you know, somebody would like, that he would like talk his way into some other situation or whatever. And not that it was like very clearly me defending myself against being grabbed. I mean, I had a bruise on my arm from how hard he grabbed my arm.
Yeah.
And so...
Well, and that's the thing, too, is with people like that is when the cops show up, they're very much like, they can play that I'm the victim here card.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm the one who got punched in the face. And especially if he's got that kind of mentality, I think that was one of your biggest concerns was like the cops are going to get there and it's going to be on me and then I'm going to get in trouble for assault.
Yeah, that was my biggest concern. But now, you know, it's kind of funny now. You know, sort of. The part I don't like is that he now tells people apparently that I am physically abusive, which, I mean, you land one punch on a guy on accident. You get one clean hit now all of a sudden. Well, and it's like, I mean, okay, I have literally hundreds of pages of screenshots of hours of audio recording that like prove that I'm not the crazy one.
Yeah.
And I know saying that makes
I
me
was
sound
gonna say,
crazy,
well, wait a
but
second.
like, you know, it just got to such a point in that relationship towards the end where I was like, I have to document everything or else I think I'm going to go absolutely insane.
And that's incredibly interesting that you mentioned that because there are times where, and I know Tom Segura has the whole bit about the first 48, where there are times where people, and I've experienced this in my own life, being arrested so many times, where people are like, I'm just going to talk to the cops. Like, I'm not going to go there with any evidence on anything, and I'm just going to go talk to them. It's like, no, you're going to do 25 to life.
Yeah.
And because there are certain times where I've been in situations where, like, say somebody cuts me off in traffic and all this, or something like that, and I'm like, well, I could get angry, but I don't have any kind of proof that they did anything. Mm-hmm. So if I do something like yell at them, or like
and
flip out
the situation.
And then the police show up and I'm 6'2", you know, almost 6'2", 240 pounds. And I'm screaming at this person in their car. I'm getting arrested. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't matter what I say.
Yeah.
Cause I'm the one getting arrested.
Right.
And I've had that experience before, like when I got arrested for my second DUI during the hurricane, because I, you know, started yelling at the manager of Walmart because he wouldn't let me in because they were closing because of the hurricane. So when the cops showed up, it's like, no, this guy is obviously, but that's beside the point. What I'm trying to say is that like, if you don't have proof, people just assume you're lying or you're the crazy one or something.
Well, and it's so easy to sell the crazy girlfriend narrative, right? Like that is like your crazy ex-girlfriend.
Yeah.
She's psycho.
Or the psycho boyfriend, like
and
in my
like,
case.
Yeah. So it's just with him, I at a certain point when I knew that things were going downhill and after I found out about the cheating, I was like, I'm going to document this so that I know what he said to me. And then later it just ended up being so beneficial and like getting over that whole situation. Cause it's like, I like listening to it. There's an hour-long conversation we had after we had, you know, I found out about the cheating where it's like, he's telling me, you know, he'll tell me one lie. And it's like, I already know that that's a lie because I've already talked to the girl, her friends, my friends. I've gotten all the evidence from all the other people because everyone like hates this dude that knows him. So they're like, let's take him down, you know?
Let's do this together.
And they're like, this is true female friendship and this is what feminism is all about, you know? It's like we are united.
Take him down.
But so it's like he'd say one thing and he'd be like, well, I was doing this. And I'm like, well, I don't think that's I don't know about that. And then he would like dig himself deeper and dig
Yeah.
himself. And I would repeat that process 5 or 6 times. And then finally the actual truth that I had been told from several other people would be uncovered. So, his new girlfriend now, good luck to her.
Yeah. Well, and that's incredibly frustrating
too. She was accidentally
too.
my
because
waitress a couple weeks ago
how, where, what?
at Stonewood.
Okay.
It was really weird.
So you know who she is.
I know who she is. I did a really good job of not, I don't know. I could have done a horrible job. I think I did a good job of not like revealing that I knew who she was.
Yeah.
And being very cool about it.
I don't know if that's a political science thing or if that, because I do the same exact thing. You never let anybody know how much you know.
Yeah. So I just completely, averted. But then the moment that she noticed me, she like recoiled in terror.
You might hit her in the face.
I mean, apparently that's what I'm known for. So, yeah. But you know what? It's whatever.
But that is an interesting story. And like I said, that's one of the biggest reasons, not biggest reasons, but that was one of the big events in your life that we bonded over because.
Well, and I saw him again like 3 weeks ago.
Oh, yeah, because you said he's back.
He's back. And my friend, we were leaving Mangoes. It was for my friend's birthday.
Yeah.
And everyone was super drunk. I wore like 8-inch heels, which was like the dumbest thing I've ever done. I'm 5'10" for people who can't ascertain height through voice, but very tall, very bad idea. I'm like tripping and falling, and he's out there emptying the mop bucket, and my friends see him, clock him, and they start like sprinting towards him like, "Fuck you, motherfucker, I'm gonna end you." And he sees them, he sprints inside, locks the door.
Oh, God.
And 2 of my friends are pounding on the door of the bar, looking at him through the glass door.
Yeah.
And they're like, "I'm gonna eat you." Like, I'm kidding. It was really heartwarming.
You know why. That's awesome.
It was a really pleasant experience for me.
Yeah, that sounds like fun. So you did mention you went to NYU, New York University.
Yep. Actually, I'm not sure what our mascot is. It's either the Violets or the Wildcats.
Okay.
Unclear. It's a D3 school, but they have one D1 team. Do you know what the one D1 team at NYU is?
Softball.
Worse.
What?
I'm giving you one more crazy guess.
Lacrosse.
It's fencing.
What?
It's fencing.
I would never would have guessed that.
I know. It's D1 fencing, and all the D1 fencers are total dicks.
Yeah, because they're fencers.
Well, they're the only D1 team at NYU, so they think they're automatically better than everybody else.
But that's not...
I'm like, but you're fencers.
Yeah.
Like, but you're fencing. It's
I mean,
not...
I don't want to upset the fencing community, but you're not an athlete. I mean, you are, but you're like...
I mean, it is like rowing, which is what I did. It is one of the easiest sports to get a scholarship for, to do in college.
But rowing is physical
rowing is like
labor.
a hard
Yeah,
sport.
that's like you
Yeah.
have to be... Like, I understand with fencing, you need to be coordinated and stuff, but that's like being like...
Well, see, I have very hot takes on what constitutes a sport or not.
Okay. I want to see if we line up on this. Go ahead.
Because I think if it is like extreme physical exertion or a game of some kind, I think of that as a sport. So like track and field to me is a sport. That because you're running a race. It requires like some sort of cardiovascular effort, or like if you're playing basketball or tennis and there's a game element to it. But like things that require a lot of skill, like to me, that's not necessarily a sport. That is like a competition. Do you understand? Like,
no,
my
I understand what
difference?
you're saying. Yeah.
And also things that are judged on by judges, I do not count those as sports because
there's no
objective rule. It's like in rowing,
you either win or you lose.
win or you lose. Or in basketball, if you foul, like that's a rule. You know that's a rule.
Yeah.
Or there's all these different, like there's all these like biases. Like I was listening to this great podcast about Tanya Harding, and basically the reason why she always did so poorly or like kind of just narrowly missed sometimes was because the judges had all these like biases towards her. So
Yes.
I don't, if there's a bias in the judging, I don't think it counts as a sport.
No,
basically.
I mean, I would totally agree with that. I dated a swimmer in college, and I used to try to make her so mad. So my hot take was that what you do is conditioning. It's not a sport. So that was my big hot take. So like, if what you do as your quote unquote sport is something I do to stay in shape for my sport,
Yeah.
that's not a sport. That's conditioning.
Okay. Yeah.
I just really honestly, I don't really believe that. I just kind of was
You
trying
just
to make
wanted to
her
piss her off,
angry.
yeah.
Yeah, but
Well, I think if it involves both like pure ability and technique, I think like you can't just have like one or the other.
yeah.
So like with golf, it's like I don't think anyone's born a natural golfer. Like
Yeah,
that's
you have
something you
to-
have to like learn that skill.
Yeah.
And that's a skill. But it's, like with rowing, it's like you have to be built the right way to be good at it. And you also have to learn the technique.
And you have
like,
to work at it.
to maximize, what you have.
So NYU, living in New York. How old were you living up there? This was towards the end of your college career,
Yeah,
correct?
so I was there my junior and senior year. I transferred there. So I would have been 20.
Okay. And what did you started doing comedy when you were in New York? So
Yeah, my senior year.
what got you to do it? Was it
So I was in group therapy.
okay?
And I was making a lot of jokes in group therapy.
As we do.
because, yeah, coping.
I do it at meetings all the time.
Humor
AA
is
meetings.
my coping mechanism. And other people thought it was funny. Like, it wasn't like anyone in the group was like, shut the fuck up, Daisy. Like, everyone really enjoyed it. But then one day, my therapist was like, maybe you should channel this into something that's not so distracting for the group.
Maybe you should cut this shit out in my group.
Yeah. And so much love to Christine. Love Christine. But so she's like, you should check it out. And that actually coincided at the same time that my roommate invited me to a comedy show for one of her friends.
Okay.
And the friend was doing comedy. And
Where was it at? Do you remember?
It was at Gotham.
Okay. So there's for the listeners who don't know and who don't obsess over comedy the way some of us do, New York obviously is a hotbed for comedy, but there are a lot of shows. Like you sent me that list for open mics when I was supposed to move up there, and there are the most random times at some of the most random places.
Oh yeah.
But the shows a lot of people know about, the clubs a lot of people know about are The Cellar, Gotham, Stand Up New York, Caroline's,
Broadway.
Broadway. So those are the bigger clubs that everyone knows about, but there's hundreds of comedy clubs in New York. These little hole in the wall places you've never even heard of. So, but Gotham is a big club, so they're having a show at Gotham. Now, is this the Friends? Is this an open mic or is this a bringer? Or is
this is the graduation showcase for like a writing workshop.
Okay.
And the Friend crushed it, but all these people went on before the Friend, and I was like, this is dog shit.
Yeah. What do you do? Oh my God. I love that you say that, because there's so many times we go to shows and like showcases and stuff.
Yeah.
Especially if they're out of town and it's a bunch of comics you don't really know. And you watch it going like, the fuck are you doing?
And, like it was like dudes telling like, oh, no means yes. Like kind of like sexual assault jokes.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I can be funnier than that.
Yeah.
And like, I can talk about these issues in a way that's like, obviously, because I make my group therapy laugh every day. It's like I can talk about these issues and not be a total dick.
Well, yeah, and that's the weird thing too, is that there's certain ways you can craft a joke. Like I talk about a lot of dark stuff on stage, as far as being an alcoholic, being I know you do too, and there's a way to craft those stories as to be funny, because like you, my coping mechanism is humor.
Right.
Like when people die, I make jokes.
Yeah.
Like when family members die, I make jokes about it. And they're not like throwaway, like, oh, they're dead. Like they're jokes that I come up with in my head, because that's how I deal with trauma.
Yeah.
Like I've got scars all over my body from when I used to cut myself, and I talk about it on stage, but I try to make it funny.
Right.
And that's just how I cope. And I know this because this is the what you're talking about is kind of, when I look through some old joke books, is kind of when I first started comedy in like 2010. It was very bro style, like no means yeah, like that kind of like just garbage. And I remember looking through a couple months ago, just during the quarantine, looking through one of my old joke books, and I was like, I can't. Like none of this is even funny. Like it's not even good.
Yeah.
But like you said, there is a way to address that material in a more thought provoking, actual funny way instead of just trying to do the shock jock.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, and I don't think there's any like off limits topics in comedy. What's off limits is, you know, are you intentionally trying to hurt somebody? Are you doing this with an actual, like, if you're not doing it with an actual punchline, or like you're not punching at the right person, then I don't think it's like appropriate. Or, you know, it's like, I think anyone could talk about race issues, but, you know, if you're a white person talking about race issues, you know, white people should be the punchline of the joke.
Well, and
know?
that's like, so I've got that
that's
bit.
just my most, and that to me, that's like the most basic principle that so many people are like, who cares?
Yeah. And that's what bothers me is and I talked to Brian about this when he was on the show, but I have that bit about, or Marcus, I have that bit about looking like a cop.
Yeah. Which he does.
And so but I remember coming back from the pandemic and doing a show, I was like, I don't know if I could still do this joke. So I worked the joke in the way to where I am the punchline, because one, it's a hilarious story from when we went to that protest for Black Lives Matter. So it's a super funny story, but at the same time, I didn't want anyone to think I'm provoking like black people are like this and white people are like that, because that's not the joke.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah.
So like to your point, there's definitely a way you can do this material. And I don't think any material's off limits as long as it's crafted, like you said, as a joke.
Yeah.
So like Aaron Eads, who's a very funny comic who I'm going to be on Hyperion with on Friday, has the joke about 9/11. And I die every time he does that joke, because the premise is so involved and it's so multiple layers and it's so funny.
Yeah.
But the second he opens it with so the opening line is something about 9/11. I'm not going to burn the joke, but it's something about 9/11. So as soon as people hear that, they're immediately like, oh, you can't. And like, you've got some stories about that too, where as soon as you open up with it, people get kind of nervous.
Yeah.
But like you said, as long as you can make it funny, and that's something that you and I you better than me, obviously, you're funniest in the 904.
That's right.
But, that's something with trauma and negative things that you and I like to do, is to try to make it funny. And sometimes it doesn't work. There are certain things that I've done on stage, like when we did that show together at Eraser Records, and that was a few days after what happened with my uncle, and it was like that day or the next day, and I was, you know, my uncle had passed, and I was in a weird place because of how it happened and what happened, and I was like, well, I got to do the show, and I went all super dark comedy, and you can't like just pile on and pile. I mean, you could, and I did, and it went terrible. But that's the thing, is like some of those bits outside of doing them all together are funny.
Yeah.
There's humor in the darkness. That's why we do stand up.
Well, and sometimes you gotta sprinkle it in, you know.
Especially at shows like Jackie Knight's.
I did the full rape set at Jackie Knight's.
Did you really?
That's what
I think you did tell me that.
That's what I won with. And I have this one joke because the guy who sexually assaulted me was a football player, but he was a third string long snapper.
God. Nobody likes the long snappers.
So I call him the Rudy of rape. And a man in the audience started chanting Rudy.
Oh, really?
For like 20 seconds, and was like, Rudy, Rudy. And
what did he obviously thought he was like helping?
Yeah, he really thought he was being like super helpful with the chant.
God.
But I mean, no one has literally ever reacted to that joke like that before, so it was so weird. But yeah, I mean, I guess I won. And Cooper was supposed to come to that show, and he didn't, and I still won, even without his stupid vote.
Yeah,
so
fuck Cooper.
And then he told everyone he won it, so.
That's insane. But yeah, that's, I don't know, back to the NYU. So you're there. Mm-hmm. We're going to see a friend at Gotham.
Yeah.
A friend of a friend. They crushed. You're watching the show, and you realize, like, oh, I'm better than all these.
Yeah.
Fucking idiots.
So the friend had done a writing workshop at Gotham. And I had written a lot of jokes before. I was very interested in comedy.
So when you were doing the jokes at group therapy and everything, you weren't just like throwing out random one, like you were actually like writing also at the time.
So I would say something in conversation, and this is actually still how I write a lot of my jokes, is I'll say something in conversation, I realize it plays really well, and then I'll go home and write it down.
Yeah, I do the same exact thing.
But then I had also written, I had done like stand-up sets for talent shows in high school.
Oh, okay.
And in college and like before NYU. So it was always something I was interested in. I tried out and made it onto some of the like comedy teams at NYU, but then the one that I got on, like every single thing was like, haha, dick and balls. And I was like, I don't really
stand that.
I was like, I don't think these are funny skits if we're just talking about like cum 24/7.
Yeah.
Like,
and I've got nothing against comics that do that, but I'm always just
it was just very like these 20-year-old boys were in control of writing comedy skits, and they needed girls to be in it. So I was
you know exactly what you're getting.
And I was like, no thanks. But yeah, so I end up taking the comedy class, like the workshop thing that the friend had done, because I was like, I really need someone to like show me how to write this more coherently, or like, I also don't necessarily want to like go to an open mic day one with like these ideas that I have in my head, because, people can kind of suck. And like, especially when you just start doing comedy, I think comedians can be kind of cruel.
Yeah.
Which is why I make it a point to never talk to anyone that's new, because I don't want to, I have a tendency to like be very snarky, kind of unintentionally.
Yeah, I do the same thing.
Well, like what I said to you at Hyperion, and then I messaged you about when I did a podcast.
Yeah, so just full disclosure, I went to Hyperion, and I was
You were wearing a lot of podcast gear.
Yeah, I was. So, well, I was wearing
which is embarrassing.
My Thick Boy Nation hat, my Thick Boy Nation mask. Shout out to Burt Kreischer, Tom Segura from Two Bears, One Cave. But then I also had Zach Bennett's Last Laugh, which is a Daytona show that we've all done. I had that t-shirt on, and you were like, you look like a walking podcast promo. And I chuckled, and I go, well, fun fact, I actually started doing a podcast because I'd been talking about it for a long time, but I actually started doing it. And then you looked right at me, and when I started this podcast up, I know the idea came like 12 years ago, but when I actually started doing it, you were one of Brian and Marcus, and maybe Buck were like the first people that popped into my head that I wanted to have on as guests. And especially because your stories fit the theme of the show so much better.
Yeah.
So I was like, I got to get Daisy on. And you looked me dead in the eye and you go, that's dumb. Everyone has a podcast. Don't tell anybody about this. And I literally was like so heartbroken and like... But I was like, oh, she's probably just messing with me. But there was a big part of me in my soul where I was like, well, I guess Daisy's not going to be on the show. And then what has it been, like a month and a half later? You text me and you go, hey, I'd love to be on the show. Yeah. And I was like, all right, got her.
Well, and it's like, because sometimes I'm trying to like, rib with you a little bit and be, a little
We're
pizzazz.
busting balls, hey.
But it comes out a lot meaner with my voice than I mean it to be. So that's why a lot of people who start doing comedy here, I think that I'm really mean, or like that I hate them, because it's honestly a conscious choice in my head to not go up to someone and be like, hey, that really sucked. I don't want to.
Well, that's the thing too, is when people first start doing comedy, I did it on and off for 10 years, and then or 8 years, and then when I came back, I was garbage.
Yeah.
So it's like, what are you going to say?
Well, it's also like, I always hated getting unsolicited feedback.
I can't stand it. If I want your advice, I'll ask for it.
Well, and look, love Joey Nickel, but he gives so much unsolicited feedback. He was the first person to talk to me when I started doing comedy here, and he immediately after my set, he comes up and he's like, maybe you should ditch the whole rape thing.
Are you fucking serious? I got nothing against Joey Nickel, but...
And I was like...
that's like someone coming up to me and being like, hey, maybe less about like the alcoholism stuff.
Yeah. And I was... Because the first set I did in Jack's, I was home for spring break from college, and it was Monday at Rain Dogs, dead silent the entire time.
Yeah.
Which I then later did that set at Gotham to a sold out crowd, and it fucking
Crushed.
killed.
Yeah.
But then,
It's
I mean,
fucking
literally
Mad Dogs.
2 weeks later. And then on Thursday, I went to Dahlia's and I did the same thing, and I got booed. But apparently it was an off night because then Christina found out about it later. And when I moved back home after college, she like pulled me aside and was like, I am so sorry. No one told me about the booing.
Oh, really?
Like, there were only like 3 people inside. I also
Yeah.
told a joke that was making fun of the Jaguars, which people did not like.
Yeah.
Which is that my mom thought that they were an arena football team.
You did tell me
Yeah.
that. That's a good
We've
joke.
lived here for a long time, and only like 2 years ago did she figure out they were not an arena football team.
Yeah, it was probably 3 years ago when we actually had that really good season.
No, it was it was after that.
Oh man. But then, so did you dive in? Were you like, this is what I'm doing now?
Yeah. So I took the class, and then the woman who was like leading the workshop, our first assignment was to write like 3 minutes of jokes.
Yeah.
And then she'd give us notes. And I went last because I was like super nervous.
Yeah.
And
for those of you listening, 3 minutes is a lot longer than you think it is.
especially
Trust
when
me.
you're starting.
Yeah.
And
Everyone's like, 5 minutes, I'll just get up there and riff. And I'm like, all right, good luck. Have fun with that.
Yeah. So, but I wrote like 10 minutes of jokes that night before. And so I did about 3 of them. And we're going, and she gives everybody else these like detailed notes on their like little sets and stuff. And she gets to me, and I finish, and everyone's like, I don't know. This is the only ever time I've had this feeling is the first time that I did a 2K test in rowing.
Okay.
And I beat the senior captain on time.
Fuck
The
yeah.
first time I ever got on an erg. And I was like, maybe I'm good at this.
Yeah.
And after I finished, everyone's like bursting out laughing my whole set. And the teacher's like, she's like, I mean, I don't really have any notes. I mean, those were all like perfectly crafted jokes, like the setup, the punchline, the timing, like those are great.
Yeah.
And, obviously I wasn't like, every joke I'm ever going to write is going to be a banger. Like, that's not how it went, but it gave me a ton of confidence to feel like I could do it.
Yeah.
Having someone else tell me, no, those were all actually very funny. And like, you have the timing to make it work, and you've got the whole whatever of it down. I was going to try to use a French word, but no thanks. Yeah. So, kept doing that. And then it was about an 8-week long thing. And about week 3, she had given someone else some advice, like write about something that makes you angry. Like, it's really easy to write jokes about things that you're angry about because they're the things you have the most opinions about.
Yeah. And you're passionate.
And you're passionate,
Yeah.
even if it's not happy passion. I mean, you have a passion for hating it. So
Yeah.
there's something there.
That's my entire set.
Yeah. So I went home and I decided to write a bunch of jokes about getting raped because I was like, you know what?
Yeah.
I hated this more than anything else in my life. And I went for it. And the next day I come in and everyone is just like, my favorite sound in comedy is when you tell a joke that's really right on that edge and everyone's like,
Yeah.
or like, oh, like they make those very specific, like, concern sounds.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then it kind of melts away and people start laughing a little bit. And that's my favorite sound. And
When
that
you
was,
open and then you hear the like the,
and then
and
people
then you
start
keep going
chuckling
and then people
yeah.
start, yeah.
And that's when I really was like, okay, no, this is like where I need to write right now. And I worked on that set for a very long time before I performed it at the club. But I went in New York. What's nice is they have like women's only open mics.
Yeah.
And they have all these different places you can go to do comedy. So I would like skip class and go to a mic, and then there's my TA that was also skipping class at the mic. And
Oh, that's awesome.
it's like,
Yeah.
and we're like, okay, we're not gonna tell each other that we're here.
Yeah.
But it was cool to have that space to like start, because I think if I had just gone to open mics in New York and just done it, I would have been really overwhelmed.
Yeah, for sure.
Because it can be kind of hard to network, but then that came with, and I remember at the time thinking in this workshop, I was like, there's only 5 women in this 20-person workshop. insane. There's only like 3 women's only mics on a Friday. What's that about? And then I come to Jacksonville and they're like, okay, we've got like 3 to 6 female comics, maybe.
Period. Yeah. End of statement.
So have fun. And I was
Yeah.
like, I can't believe what a rube I was to be like, yeah.
Well, and it's weird too because with what you're saying with the class and having that but having that validation, it's definitely something where you're like, oh, like I can do this. And I know obviously like you were talking about with rowing and like with me with football, it's when you get that first like, okay,
yeah,
maybe there's something here.
Yeah.
Which is, I have kind of a different experience because when I started doing stand-up, it was because I loved watching stand-up from when I was like 6. And so I just started going to open mics in South Florida, but this is when I was still drinking and doing drugs and everything. So I was just getting like fucked up and doing open mics and just bombing, but I didn't care because I liked being on stage. And then as I kind of grew as a person and then, you know, got sober, then fell off, then got sober, fell off, I started to realize it's not about making people chuckle with dick jokes. It's about now, after everything I had been through, similar, obviously not the same situation, but going through some of such like this turmoil and darkness and stuff, I was like, oh, now I've got something to say. And the only way I know how to say it is as a joke.
Right. Well, a big part of it for me was like the healing aspect of it all is that like me being able to get up and tell these jokes is kind of like a declaration that, you know, it doesn't have as much of a hold on me anymore. And when I did my first show at Gotham, which I technically opened for Jerry Seinfeld in that show.
Boom. There it is.
Which I love telling people because it's such a technically.
Yeah.
But he did a drop-in at Gotham that night because it was sold out because I tricked everyone I knew into coming that night. Which was so amazing. I mean, to have all those people and, you know, then they brought people. And then, of course, like the people that they brought are now like my biggest fans. Because it's, you know, your friends are like, whatever, fuck you. But then, you know, your friends of your friends or like one of my friends' moms is like my super fan.
Oh, that's awesome.
So it's like stuff like that's always kind of cool. And, you know, they all came. But yeah, Jerry Seinfeld dropped in and did like a 15-minute set about those Flex Seal commercials.
Yeah.
You know, like, I just sawed this boat in half.
Yeah,
you know? So I technically opened for Jerry Seinfeld because
he's
he
doing
did
Flex Seal, and you're doing your
and I'm
your
like,
well-crafted bit about rape, and
I'm
he's
like Rudy a rape, and he's like, I just sawed this boat in half.
"What's the deal with the Flex tape?" Oh,
we are both really bad at Jerry Seinfeld impersonations.
Well, I don't do impressions anymore. I did want to ask you. You thought you accidentally took meth?
So it's up for debate.
When was this? Was this at NYU? This
was my senior year of high school, or right after my senior year of high school. So I was 18. And it actually happened, which I didn't realize until driving over here, about a mile from where we are right now.
Oh, really?
Yes. I was...
I don't mean to interrupt you, but full disclosure, of course, everyone who listens to the podcast knows I always like my guests to come in with a couple of crazy stories. And as soon as Daisy walked in, I said, so do you have any stories about like drinking or drugs or anything like that? She goes, yeah, well, there is the time I think I accidentally took meth. So I definitely wanted to get to that. So now a mile from the house, what happens?
No, I mean like where you are now.
Yeah, in my house now. Yeah.
We are very nearby to where this happened. I was talking to this dude at the time, and I mean, first of all, he was short. He was like 5'7", huge red flag. You know how I feel.
Yeah, I know exactly how you feel about that.
And he was like a club promoter, but he had just retired from selling drugs. So
what?
Look, 18-year-old Daisy was on one all the time.
Yeah, this is definitely not the Daisy that I know.
This Daisy's been hardened by trauma and got way less annoying. Thanks, PTSD. And all those antidepressants. I mean, they've really made me way more. So I go over there and he's like, do you want to do ecstasy? And I was like, yeah, I guess. Like, I didn't go over there with the intention to do drugs. Because he had just retired at the ripe old age of 21 from being a drug dealer.
Yeah.
And I guess he like sold his like client list, because I've watched a lot of Law and Order, so I know that that's a thing.
Well, it's also a thing in insurance.
Yeah. So I think it's the thing in like any industry, really.
Any sales industry. I think that's a thing.
So he sold his client list to a friend, and then kind of as a thank you, gave him some drugs in addition to like the money for the list. He's like, well, I got this free ecstasy. And I was like, I mean, sure, why not? And we consume the drugs, and it's been like 2 hours now, and I don't feel a fucking thing. Yeah. I'm like, I think you got like
bogus ecstasy.
This is like glass shards. Like this is not even like anything in here. Yeah. It's been 2 hours. I feel like, and not that this is the first time I'd ever done drugs of any kind. I'd never drank before this. I had never done drugs. I mean, I like stole a cigarette from my mom once in high school and like smoked it in the bathroom and then threw up. Yeah. Because I thought I would smoke the whole thing because I'm an idiot. But
hell no.
And then now I'm like vaping all the time. But yeah, so 2 hours, I don't feel a fucking thing. And again, because I didn't go there with the intention to do drugs. I had some errands to run for my mom on my way home. Well, I have to go to Target to pick up some bar stools. Okay. So I go to Target, the one on, I think it's Southside. Okay. Okay. And before I leave, I look in the mirror, and I am covered, like, neck down in hickeys.
Really?
And it's like it looks like I got attacked by a swarm of bees. Yeah. Like it's really bad. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Yeah. Like I'm uninterested in this from the club promoter with the bum drugs. Like I'm really unhappy. So I find a scarf in the car, and it's like hot outside.
Yeah, it's Florida, yeah.
So I'm like trying to wear a scarf with shorts.
It's called fashion, Mom.
Yeah. And I'm wearing like it's a very 2014 outfit. I'm wearing like a denim button up with like a scarf, and I've bedazzled it a little bit with like little studs. Yeah. I go into the Target, and I go looking for the specific bar stools that my mom wanted. And I'm looking at the bar stools, and I've just called an associate over because I found the bar stools that I want. And just all of a sudden, everything becomes about 100 times more Target. Okay. Like, Target is fucking Target, man. Yeah. Like, it is... The colors are way targetier. The air is a lot targetier. The sounds. I mean, my eyes must have looked like fucking flying saucers because the associate comes over and he's like, "Can I help you?" And I was like, "I need the bar stools, man.
Load them up."
So he's taking them over. I'm like basically wading around in the waters of the Target is what it feels like to me. And I have to go to the makeup aisle, because I don't have any makeup in my car, and
You're covered in hickeys.
I am covered in hickeys. And I'm 18, so it's like, I know my mom isn't going to be like super jazzed about that one. Because one time I came home from a football game with a hickey, and my mom's like, he's branding you, Daisy. And I was like, it goes away. Yeah. Like, anyways. So I go and get, I ended up buying about $300 worth of makeup, and because I was like, this is what I need to do. Like, none of the decisions I make this evening make any sense. But so I load up the car, and I have a Lincoln Town car at the time, bench seats in the front, just smooth ride. Yeah. Her name was Bertha. You could like literally fit like 2 or 3 bodies in that trunk.
Heck yeah.
Like almost all the bar stools fit in the trunk without a problem. And I'm sitting in my car, and I'm like, I'm high on something right now. I've been told it's ecstasy, and I have to get home. But like, it's not safe to be on drugs and drive. No. I know what I'll do. I'll call my friends and talk to them while I drive
Yeah.
so that I don't do anything stupid.
Yeah.
So I start calling literally everyone I know. And I'm like, hey, I'm on drugs right now.
Oh, God.
They're like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm in the car.
I'm driving.
I'm driving. I'm on drugs. And I'm like talking a million miles an hour about just nothing.
Yeah.
And it was insane. I get home and I have enough wherewithal to be like, I have to get the bar stools out of the car and put them in the living room and not talk out loud to my mom.
Yeah.
I need to be silent. And of course she says like, hey, how was Target? I'm like, it was great. Target was awesome. I love Target. Target was really cool today. I got all the bar stools. Okay, bye. And then I run upstairs.
Yeah.
And I have the energy of like, a puma at this point. And I start having to get that feeling of having to chew on stuff.
Yeah.
And I couldn't find any gum. And I knew we had gum downstairs, but if I went downstairs, then I ran the risk of having to talk to my mom.
Yeah.
Which I knew would be disastrous. So I found what I considered to be the next best thing in my room, which was note cards.
Okay.
You want to take a gander of how many note cards I ate that night?
12.
You're very close. It was about 15 note cards.
You just chewed on them?
I chewed them, and then they kind of went into the ball,
Yeah.
and then they just dissolved. And I was just chewing note cards all night long.
That's definitely an upper thing, because the teeth grinding is definitely an upper thing.
And then I decided it would be a really good idea. I wanted to take a bath and then also like wear clothes, but then also not wear clothes, but then also I wanted to do every possible combination I could of bath and clothes.
Okay.
So lay in the bathtub,
With
no
clothes?
water, with clothes.
Okay.
Then no water without clothes, so just naked in a bathtub, nothing else going on. And then I was like, okay, now I'm
It's like
going
you're preparing for suicide.
And then I was like, now I'm going to take a bath with water, like regular, boring, and then I'm going to take a bath with clothes. And
Okay.
I did that for a couple hours.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Oh, God.
I just did that cycle. Kept calling everyone I knew. I stayed up all night. I believe I was like blasting like Tame Impala in my room and like jumping on my bedroom was like right above my parents' room. So I'm
Parents,
like,
yeah, I was gonna say,
I'm,
did
like,
they come up
jumping.
and say like, "Hey, what's going on"?
No, nothing. I think my dad was out of town, so it wasn't.
Okay.
It was just my mom. And I'm like flipping out upstairs. I'm doing like somersaults in my room. I mean, I was like, I've never done a somersault in my life. Okay. And here I am. I'm like, woo.
Yeah.
And the next day, it's like time to go to school, and I'm finally starting to like calm down. I think I ended up sleeping for about 30 minutes. And I have hickeys all over me. And I'm like, this is the dumbest fucking thing I've ever done in my life. So I'm having to wear my summer scarf, which, I mean, it wasn't even summer, but I was like having to wear the scarf to cover everything. And I had like, 10 layers of foundation on my neck. And the reason why I now believe it to be meth. So I was talking to some more of the seasoned drug users in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And like,
Is this at the time or is this recently?
This was later. This was very recently. Because at first I was like, oh, this is the time I did ecstasy in a Target. And now it's like, no, I'm pretty sure I accidentally did meth. So like the specifics of like the feelings I had when I was high, they were like, yeah, that's meth. And then the way I consumed it, it was like chips almost that I like chewed on. And it tasted like fucking battery acid.
Yeah, it tastes like fiberglass.
And they were like, yeah, no, that's meth, honey. And I was like, oh, sweet, I've done meth.
Yeah.
And you know what? If someone gave it to me, I'd probably fucking do it again because it was great.
It's intense.
And then I felt like shit for 2 weeks after.
Yeah, it takes so much out of you.
It completely depleted any of my brain chemicals.
Yeah.
And I was so bad after that. I mean, thankfully, I'd already tried to kill myself like 2 times before that.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I know what happens if I try to do it again.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, because with meth, I know crack is a lot like this. Coke, not so much because it's more of a pure. It's less like chemical based. But you get the pickings and like you're itchy all over, and you start grinding your teeth.
Yeah.
And you're just awake. all the time.
I mean, and like the next day I still had a little bit of it going on, and I had like the best rowing practice of my life that next day because I was like, I could fucking lift a car right now.
Yeah, let's go.
And I'm like covered in hickeys, pulling great splits, coming down from meth.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you mentioned it, rowing. You were a college rower.
Yep, I was a.
Did you row at NYU or no?
I rowed on their club team. Actually, 4 years ago today, I won a bunch of races at a regatta with NYU.
I saw that on you tweeted that.
Yeah, which is kind of that was like my comeback, you know. And then I was like, all these people are kind of bad at rowing, and I don't really want to do it again.
Yeah, because you were originally. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I was a D1 athlete. I went to the University of Kansas, which went there. Was a D1 athlete at KU. Then I ended up transferring because of the whole, rape thing.
The way you always throw it out there. That
I just feel like I have to say it as goofy as possible so someone who's listening, like, and this is, I do this in comedy, I do this like with everything where I'm like, I kind of got to throw it away and make it sound goofy so I feel like it protects both myself and others from the concept of the word sometimes.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, rape, like a slide whistle kind of thing.
I can't even do it. So you were at Kansas.
Yeah, then I transferred out, and when I was at NYU, I joined the club team, and then everyone was like really bad at rowing on the club team.
Yeah, it's a club team.
Because it's a club team, and that pissed me off a lot because I, of course, thought I was like the greatest athlete of all time.
Mm-hmm. As we do.
Yeah, and I was like very disrespected by, the way they conducted themselves and,
What do you guys think? This is just for fun? Well, it's a club team. Yeah, it is.
And I was also coaching rowing at the time at a nonprofit in New York. And I was actually coaching through Coach Across America, which is
like a Teach for America.
It's like Teach for America with coaches.
Yeah.
And they told me they were going to pay me, minimum wage as a stipend. And then for only like 15 hours of work a week. And then I was having to work like 40 hours a week on top of getting up at 4 a.m. to go drive to New Jersey to go row and like a full fucking school schedule. And I was like, I quit everything but school. Like I can't do it. But, so I was at Kansas before, and I don't know if you know this, but do you know that Lawrence, Kansas is the most hungover city in America?
No, I did not.
Yeah, that pretty much just describes my time there. I had never drank before I got to college.
Yeah, that's what you were saying.
Yeah.
So when you got there, I don't mean to interrupt you, but when you got there, that's like my fucking catchphrase in this fucking podcast. I didn't mean to interrupt, but when you got there, though, you're from Jacksonville.
Yeah. Well,
so
I'm from Dallas originally.
Okay. But when you were rowing in high school.
Yeah, both places.
Okay.
But because I'd only been in Jacksonville like maybe 15 months.
Okay, but then did you got recruited out of high school to row?
Yeah.
And then you were like, all right, I'm going to go to Kansas. I'm going to row. And then what is that like? Because I took a semester in between high school and college. So I kind of like did a lot of like partying with friends and stuff like that. So I kind of like had that experience before I actually went to play college football. So for you to go up there, I know that can be kind of, were you like, what the fuck?
Yeah, I mean, like I felt like I had made, because I hadn't been in Jacksonville that long, I didn't have like a bunch of friends to like go do stuff with, or like if they did, it was always like something out of like a very deranged teen movie,
Yeah.
It's like they are the types of people where like the urban legend of the rainbow party, like that's where that would have come from. Like, and a thing that they would have gone to would have been like, they were having a rainbow party, and everyone would be like, no, they're not, that's not a real thing, or whatever. So I just like didn't really want, like I loved them all, but I was like kind of scared to hang out with any of them in high school.
Yeah.
Like outside of like school. And then also everyone on my rowing team thought I was a huge loser. Which I found about later because I always had this sinking suspicion that they were like talking about me behind my back. And then like last year they were like, oh yeah, we were always talking about you behind your back.
Don't you hate when you're fucking right about that shit?
And they're like, yeah, we were always talking in the parking lot about what a loser you were. And I'm like, I mean, you guys could have just not told me and I would have been fine for the rest of my life.
Well, the thing that bothers me is like we were talking about earlier is like people think we're the crazy ones. It's like, I'm right. I'm not crazy.
Yeah.
I'm right.
Well, and then they were like, well, once we actually started to get to know you, you were really cool. And I'm like, fuck it. I mean, it's like two things I really hate is like the presumptions about me because of, you know, either how I come off or if I look scary or whatever. But then also like the concept of people, like everyone doing something without me.
Yeah.
Like both of those things are like my extreme sore spots. So yeah. So I just didn't, all I did was row the summer between high school and college.
Yeah.
I just rowed, trained, you know, I think I went to the beach a couple of times. And then when I got to Kansas, because we had to get there like 3 weeks early, I think, to start training and just.
It's a fall sport, right?
So it's mainly spring, but it is fall spring. The fall season is kind of like cross country, where you're doing distance.
Okay.
And then the spring season is shorter races, the 2,000-meter race.
Okay.
And that's like the gold standard.
Yeah.
But they have head races in the fall, that's like Head of the Charles, and kind of all those idyllic images you would see of rowing would probably be head races.
Okay. So you get there a few weeks early.
I get there a few weeks early, and like probably the second or third night we're there is.
And you're living on campus at this point?
So I actually was living in, because rowers were not given preference for dorms like other sports were.
Yeah.
Because
I'm assuming in Kansas basketball was the number one.
Basketball's number one. Football got a lot of preference.
God, they're garbage.
Yeah. No, I mean, it had so much insult to injury to know how bad they are in football. Like everything that happened, I'm like, and you guys are bad at it. Like, like if you were covering up for someone who was like very good at football, I'd be like, yeah, I get it. And I'm like, third string long snapper, worst team in the NCAA. Yeah. It pisses me off so much.
You're still trying to cover it up.
I'm like, he's literally nothing. He's a nothing person. And not even for like the bad stuff. He just is a nothing person. Yeah. But yeah, so our first, I think maybe third night there, you know, and we're all like bigger girls. We're all like 5'10", in that, you know, 5'8" to 6 foot range. Everyone's kind of like beefier because we all, you know, lots of muscle. Some of these girls had never done rowing before, but they were like volleyball players or softball players or.
So were they recruited to row?
Yep.
Because you need the length. That's why you need the height.
Yeah, so there's a lot of times where schools in the Midwest, if there's not a lot of people that want to row, maybe like people don't necessarily want to row there, but they have a good rowing program. What they'll do is they'll recruit basketball players, volleyball players, anyone who has the physical type to be good at rowing, and then teach them how to row.
Yeah, give them a scholarship, teach them how to row.
Yeah, and it works pretty well for a lot of different places. But like third night, we all decide to go out to Shark Night, which is the frats all open up their houses on the same night.
Oh, that's sweet. It's like an open house.
Yeah, it's super sweet. Shark Night. Fresh bait. Get it? Ha ha ha. Super predatory. So we all decided to go out to...
And they just put it right there in the name.
Yeah. No, they're like, no shame.
I can't fucking stand that. That's like when guys come up to me at the gym. They're like, yo, just check out that chick. There's so much pussy in here. I'm like, dude, like, ugh.
Yeah. It's like, please leave me alone.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I thought it'd be fun. And it's like, again, I had never had alcohol before in my life, except for like the one time that I accidentally drank half of my mom's margarita because I thought it was lemonade when I was like 9. So
that doesn't count.
But that doesn't count. And then I think I had a sip of like an Irish coffee before that, you know, my cousin, which again doesn't count.
No, that's not.
And we start going around, and I'm having like a fucking blast. I mean, I think I had like UV blue as like my starter.
Yeah,
you know,
I forgot about that.
Like all the shitty college-based liquors you can have. You know, shit ton of Fireball.
Everything's super sugar, super flavored.
Super flavor. I had at least 4 colors of UV that night. You know, there was like whipped cream flavored vodka involved. But I mean, I'll have to send you some of the pictures when we're done of what I looked like at the end of that evening. Yeah. But, you know, we were at like frat house 3, and I'm drunk at this time. And, you know, one of my teammates keeps going missing and like wandering off. And we're like, don't. And like now she's my absolute best friend, like total soulmate. But at the time we had just kind of met each other.
Yeah.
And I was like, Kaylin, like, don't leave the group. And she'd be like, okay. And then we'd like turn around and she'd be fucking gone. So we're at this frat house. We're like looking around for her, And I walk in and I go, "Hey, everybody, I'm taller than everybody here." Thinking this is going to go over really well because I'm a 5'10" girl wearing like 6-inch platform heels. And then I walk up to this really like short dude who's manning the alcohol table. Like, I mean, he was shorter than me without the heels. So I walk up to the table. There's a half drunk handle of like, you know, Stoli vodka on the table, and I pick it up. Stoli it. Get it?
Oh,
excellent puns.
Comedy.
I grab it, and then I walk out, and I yell, "I'm a feminist." And then I see Kaylin, and some creepy dude is like cornered her outside by a ledge, and I like grab her, and I'm like, "We're leaving.
We're out of here."
And that was like the first night I went out was actually super fun and like goofy and stupid. And
so I know you do the bit about picking guys up. Did you actually do that when you were at school?
Yeah. So when I was in, my favorite thing to do, there was this bar called The Cave in Lawrence. It's in a basement. But the plus of going to the Cave over like the Wheel or the Hawk or Bullwinkles was that they had a coat check. So
oh yeah, I keep forgetting Kansas.
It's cold as shit. So it was really fun to go in the winter because it was like super warm inside because it's like literally a cave.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've like had the weirdest. I mean, I saw like G-Eazy at the Cave. Like he just came in and did a set one night.
That's cool.
And you know, some of the girls on the team, their boyfriends or like some of our managers and stuff, they would work at the Cave. So we'd get like free VIP wristbands to go sit in the area that actually had like chairs.
Yeah.
And it was always fun to go to the Cave, but that was my main place to go looking for people. And I would wear my giant 6-inch heels. And that's how I would, you know, if they were like my height or taller, then I would talk to them if I'm wearing the heels.
Yeah.
Because they were like my biggest ones where I'm like, I would never wear these every day.
Yeah.
But, you know.
Obviously.
And I would like go up and I was such a dick. I would like go up and congratulate dudes on being tall as like a pickup line.
Really?
Yeah. And it fucking worked.
Did it?
It worked.
Oh, that's bizarre.
But I was also like way hotter back then. So it like, I mean, I'm sure that they were just like, oh, okay. Yeah.
You're talking to me. What's up? Yeah.
But another thing I would do, especially once, you know, I was about, you know, 4 or 5 Jayhawk shots in, was I would walk up to the tallest dude in the room and I'd be like, "Hey, I can pick you up." Be like, "What?" I'd be like, wait, hold on a minute. And I would just stoop down and scoop him up by his knees.
Like a baby.
And I would just hold him like a baby. And he'd be like, "What the fuck? Put me down." I'd be like, "Okay." And then just like, and I would just like walk around and do this. And I mean, I've done it to multiple people who are now NBA players. And like,
oh yeah, because you're at Kansas.
I was at Kansas, so you know, we had like, you know, Kelly Oubre, you know,
that's Kelly Oubre. When you tell that joke on stage, that's the person I picture. Kelly
but
Oubre.
It is. I mean, it really is, and you know, it was always fun because anytime I got drunk and there was a basketball player, they were always way more into my friends than they were ever into me.
Yeah.
But I loved using it as an opportunity to like make fun of them. You
okay.
know, because it's like all the basketball players really thought that they were just fucking hot shit. Because, I mean, they were.
Yeah.
But, you know, like Bill Self, the coach, his son played basketball while I was there. Tyler Self. I'm taller than Tyler Self. Like, significantly so.
Yeah.
And he would walk around like he was fucking hot shit. And I'm like, you've literally never played in a game.
Yeah.
Like, and he would say super dickish stuff. And I mean, I remember I swooped him up once and he got really mad. Like everyone else thought it was funny because they all wanted to have sex with my friends. So of course they were like, "Oh yes, haha."
Your friend is hilarious.
Great joke.
You are the funniest.
Right? But yeah, no, Tyler was like, "Put me down." Like a petulant little toddler.
He's a little bubby.
He's so small. It always brought me so much joy when I would do that. And there's so many pictures of me just like holding random dudes.
Yeah, because I know you talk about it on stage, and I was like, oh, well, you've never like done that. Like it's just a joke. It's like for effect.
No,
And
it's
you're
on
like,
my Instagram.
yeah, when you sat down, I was like, do you actually do that? And you're like, yeah, all the time.
Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah. I mean, now I'm like less strong, so I can't do it as well as I used to.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's like.
Well, the upper body strength from rowing, you probably could
Well,
just.
it's all legs.
Oh, is it?
In
oh, yeah,
rowing.
because you got to.
It's like doing a jump squat over and over again. Yeah.
So you could probably just yoink.
As long as I get down the
Low
right
enough,
angle
yeah.
with my knees, then I can do it. But yeah, like, you know, someone like Trevor, I can just whip him up in a second. That's easy, you know.
Trevor Johnson's a local comedian who probably weighs about 130 pounds soaking wet.
I mean, maybe. Yeah, that's probably it. He's tiny.
He's skinny as hell.
It's so easy to pick him up, and it's really fun to do. So I just recommend it. If you guys run into him, just scoop him up like a little baby.
He actually messaged me. I'm gonna get him on the podcast here soon.
Good. That'll be fun.
You said it kind of.
No, I'm like a truly sincere good.
I thought you were like,
not,
good.
no.
Election's coming up. He's going to want to talk politics the whole time.
Of course he does. He's going to try to turn this into Chapo. And
he's going to try.
And you got to watch it.
Yeah. Oh, God. Every time I just try and like chit chat with him outside of his shows.
He's like, and the government's corrupt. You're like, I know, Trevor.
Yeah, totally know that.
Can we talk about something
else? Anything else.
Well, and I think you relate to this probably as a political science guy, where it's like everyone wants to talk politics with you. And I feel like after I got my poli-sci degree, the last thing I really want to talk about with people is politics. Because people are like, explain this very lofty concept. And I'm like, I literally... Like, all I know is that everything's fucked all the time.
Yeah.
There's really nothing we can do about it.
I tell tables all the time.
And you're all going to ignore me for telling you that it's fucked up. Yeah.
You get to, if I get to talking to a table at one of the restaurants I work at, and then they find out that I majored in political science, they're always like, oh my God, so what's your take on this or that? And I always tell them the same thing. I studied it for 5 years.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about it anymore. And because sometimes I'll hang out with Buck and he wants to like show me clips of press conferences and stuff. And I'm like, dude, like, how do you
It's exhausting.
Like, I can't.
Because he like thinks that we're gonna like engage in a debate, and I'm like, the last thing I want to do.
I know is talk. And the one thing I don't know if they like. I used to have one of my favorite professors, Jeffrey Morton, favorite professor. He used to always say, he taught like he was the head of the political science department. I think he is now, but he was does international affairs, taught international law, did all that stuff. He used to always say, "There's 3 things you don't ever talk about with people: finance, religion, and politics." And I took that to heart. And what I've noticed is that, and I'm sure you have the same thing, is that if anybody asks me a question about it, they already have their opinion. Yeah. They're not changing their opinion. They just want me to validate their opinion.
Right.
So it's like, why? I'm not even going to play this game with you.
Yeah. Although I definitely will. I'll push back sometimes, if someone says something to me that's just like flat out wrong, I'll be like, well, okay, here's something I actually studied that like proves you're wrong. And then usually I'm not trying to change anyone's mind or correct them. I really just want them to leave me alone. And once you start throwing things out like Overton window, they're like, leave me alone.
Yeah.
Nerd.
Well, that's, I mean, these are all my books. I still have all my books from college.
Oh, same. I have like a huge pile of like, because I double majored in history. And then when I was at Kansas, I had a 3rd major in international relations.
Oh, God.
Because I kept finishing too much of the degree process. And the NCAA was like, you have to take more classes or else you're like too far in your degree for your eligibility. So I just kept adding majors. And so I have like all these fucking textbooks.
Yeah, I kept all mine. I enjoy going back and looking at them. And it's just...
I have one I think you would like. It's like all personal essays and letters from people in World War II.
Oh, that would be really cool.
It's called like A World Beyond Flames or something.
It's in the other room, but I have the free labor, free soil, free men. I got a lot of McPherson when it comes to World War II. And then I've got my joke books too.
Nice.
Friars Club jokes. But yeah, that's the bizarre thing to me is that people... And that's what you're talking about. It's like, I don't want to change anybody's mind, but at the same time, it's like, you don't want to hear what I have to say.
Right.
You want what I say to validate what you already think. So like, I can't stand it when people are like, well, and then they'll throw out like these little sound bites that they heard on like Tucker Carlson or like CNN or something. And it's like, you heard that as a soundbite. Like you don't even
know what it means.
Yeah, like when people are all like, oh, like they're trying to turn it into social. It's like you understand socialism is an economic platform, like capitalism, not a political platform.
I know that's
like
my
fascism
favorite.
Or democracy. Like
that's my favorite thing. Is I'm like, I love to just be like, Explain the difference to me between democracy and capitalism. And it breaks people's brains
Yeah.
immediately because they see capitalism as automatically a function of democracy. And you're like, that?
No, yeah. Economics is completely
there's
separate
economics
from
and then there's-
politics.
there's
They're
just,
two
like-
different fields of study.
It's completely different stuff. Yeah.
Oh, man. Anyway, we're getting off the rails. So plug everything one more time. Thank you so much for being here, Daisy.
Of course. And yeah, you can follow me on every social media platform at Fat Steve Buscemi. Fat Steve Buscemi.
Perfect.
It is. You can find me there. And YouTube, Daisy Tackett. Watch my comedy. And I've got a show this Sunday at
The
Veterans
17th,
United.
Veterans United here in Jacksonville.
Is that the 17th?
You said it was
Well,
the 17th.
I was asking it like, is it the 17th? And then you were like, 'cause that's a Sunday, right?
The 17th is a Saturday.
Okay, well, it's this Sunday is what I was told.
So it's either
The
this
18th.
this Sunday, the
here's
18th
the thing.
at Veterans United.
If you follow me at Fat Steve Buscemi, you'll find out.
Yeah, there you go. Boom. Follow her at Fat Steve Buscemi. Of course, I am your host, Brennan Tassif. Thank you so much for joining us this week. And Brennan Tassif is your ex-drinking buddy. Follow me on everything at Brennan T Comedy. Got a big show at Hyperion tomorrow, the 16th. That's a Friday here in Jacksonville. And we'll talk to you all next week.